think the world is kind of, it seems like reacting fairly well to this pandemic compared to what the absolute worst case scenario could be. Is that it seems like even though we did get caught off guard and reacted slowly, on the whole, the world is working together. Each country seems to be doing, at its own pace, the relatively the right thing. Even here in the United States, every state is kind of, I mean, obviously some slower than others,
Yeah.
seem to be doing the right thing. So it's just, I mean, it seems much better than if this happened 100 years ago.
Well, yeah.
mean,
In certain
it
ways,
is
half the people
2020.
can still work because they can work from home and work remotely, right?
Right.
Um, uh, and you know, I you mentioned about every state has different like lockdowns. The problem is that we're also much more mobile than 100 years ago. We fly a lot. Our cars move way faster than horse and buggies than 100 years ago, right? Our trains are faster. Um, and so what happens is like in the old days, if you had an epidemic in Louisiana, it'll take a while before it goes to Alabama, Texas, New York, and all the other places. But now one spring break trip in Florida can spread all these spring breakers across the country. And we've actually seen cell phone data of these Miami spring breakers and their cell phone signals of where they went to after that weekend was over. And the problem with the US is like not every state has a good lockdown. So think of a ship. If a ship has 50 holes and like 25 of the states, 25 of the holes were plugged, or even 30 or 40 of the holes were plugged with lockdowns, the ship is still sinking, right? Because the water will still get in from the other holes and still flood the interior of the country, interior of the ship. And so because we have no real borders in the US, you can't put a border between New York and New Jersey and New York and Connecticut. It's just, there's no such thing as a border there. So you could have as tight of a lockdown, but if your neighboring state does not have a lockdown, the ship is still sinking and taking on water through the other holes. And that's the problem right now.
So do you see a failure at the federal level to, is our efforts here in California wasted because of Florida's, for example, refusal to shut down their state?
Yeah, it's not entirely wasted. I would not say wasted, but it is much less effective than it could be if we're all like on the team. Hey, I plug my hole, you plug your hole, and then we all stop this ship from sinking, right? And taking on more water.
So which states are currently not locked down?
For example, Kansas. Kansas governor had ordered a lockdown, but the Republican legislature yesterday overthrew her lockdown. They overrode with a veto. So Kansas no longer has a lockdown.
But I wonder if do you know if the people there they're like, oh, well, cool, let's all go ice skating, whatever they do in Kansas. Probably not ice skating. Are the people there getting the message and observing
I'm not
protocol?
sure in every state. Every state a little different. And the other thing is, even the states that do have lockdowns, the lockdown order is half a page. The waiver and exemptions is like 2 pages long.
Right.
So you can visit grandma's, you can go fix your car. In California, by the way, there's also places where you can go, see a dermatologist because they're for profit and they are still open.
Are we doing enough here in America?
I mean, I can tell you my family lives in Israel, and I hear their stories of what's going on there, and it sounds way different, but it is so much smaller that, it's
different how? What's happening in Israel?
So, for example, it was just Passover now, and they knew that people are going to want to go do the Passover together with their family, so they closed all streets.
Oh, wow.
So no one can go anywhere because it's on a government level. They ordered everyone.
Passover, for reference, is like for people who don't know, is like Christmas is for the Jews. It's a big holiday.
Not as fun, but it's
not
a holiday.
Way less fun. Yeah, but it's the big one.
Or for example, another example, my sister gave me. She's at home with 3 kids, and she it gets really hard to entertain them. At some point, she just went downstairs to the street just to go outside, get some fresh air, and a police officer came to her and asked what is she doing outside, why is she outside, and asked to see her ID and to make sure she really lives there in that building.
So, in your opinion, do you think the United States is doing enough to confront this?
No, absolutely not. Our lockdowns are crappy, but I think, lockdowns, we can't have lockdowns forever, obviously. What we have to do is, lockdowns, by the way, are mitigations. They're mitigations by definition, just, a Band-Aid, what we really need to do is testing, contact tracing, quarantine. And by testing right now, I don't mean like testing when people get to the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many testing right now. It's like New York City, they're so overwhelmed. They're only testing you if you get to the hospital. It's really bad. And so what you need to do is what I call frontier testing. At the frontier, the moment someone develops their first fever or chill or dry cough, immediately test them. And after you immediately test them, immediately contact trace where they've been, who were they with.
Is that even possible at the scope that we've gotten here in the United States?
We have to slow it down, obviously. Now, in Singapore and Korea, they have mobile apps that tells you,
right,
even if you don't know someone, that you were in that person's vicinity. Like you go to a restaurant, like you don't know who's at the next table next to you, but your mobile phone would know that, this phone was in a proximity to that phone for an extended period of time. And so in their app, they would directly communicate and tell the authorities that this person was in vicinity of that person. Years ago, I actually built this, for all the people who thought that, I'm not infectious disease. When the 2014 Ebola outbreak happened under Obama's watch, I was like, we have to build something like this because you're never going to know everyone that you cross paths with in a restaurant, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to have something like you share your location, and then if the next day, and it's saved, and next day, if you or I test positive, then you go back in the record history and find in a path, who did you cross paths with in the last 7 days, right? And then, for example, if we didn't know each other in a restaurant and the location markers put us next to each other, 2 days ago, then it would notify me with an alert that, Eric was in your vicinity 2 days ago, but 2 days later you tested positive. And so that's how you do all like advanced contact tracing. And we might have to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me, I just saw your knee. Are you wearing pants?
No, I'm not. I'm on a podcast.
Yeah, no, I don't expect to. I just saw your knee and I was like, oh, I love it.